Hello, 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 and welcome to Boss Radio Live. Again, hello, and welcome to Boss Radio Live. I'm your host, NJ. And we were having a little bit of technical difficulty there, so I hope you all got my message and are hanging in or coming back if you didn't hang in. But we have Morgan McCarver with us today. Again, we have Morgan McCarver with us today, an amazing artist. But you guys, in case you didn't hang around, we're going to give you a minute to come back. So we will be getting started in just a minute. A great show coming up. It's Boss Radio Live with NJ, your three-dimensional podcast. Baltimore, Maryland. I love my city. Wow. You have to have balance.
Mother's Day extravaganza event being held by LUC Lois Button Culver.
Come meet me today at the Spirit Center. I want to hear what you have to say. Again, welcome to the show. This is Boss Radio Live. Everyone, glad to be here today for another fabulous Friday show. Today, I have Morgan McCarver with me. She is an author and an award-winning ceramic artist. And we're going to hear more about her very interesting book. I really wanted to talk about that. But if you don't know her or have never heard of her, here's a little bit of information about Morgan. Morgan McCarver is an award-winning ceramic artist and author. After scoliosis surgery made it impossible for her to dance, she directed her creative energy and discovered a passion for clay. After receiving a degree in ceramics, Morgan established her business Morgan McCarver Porcelain in 2019 and has studios in North and South Carolina. Her work has been featured in galleries and exhibitions across the U.S. In 2023, she became a recipient of the North Carolina Arts Council Support Grant. Morgan's faith is important to her, and she's active in ministry as a youth leader. And her faith in artistry culminated in the creation of her book, God the Artist, an inspirational account of the aspects of pottery and how it is referenced in the Bible. Morgan is honored that God is allowing her to share her story to further his kingdom. Welcome, Morgan McCarver. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you on the show. So glad that you are here with me today because I really want to talk about your story and your book, which is very inspiring, actually, your story. And so I want to start there. So how did you first get into pottery? And so I know there's a whole story behind that. How did you first get into pottery?
You're right. There is a whole story behind that. A lot of people think it's a family tradition, and it's really not. But basically, I have always looked for a creative outlet. And for a while, that was dance. And I danced competitively, and that was my passion. But I had scoliosis spinal fusion surgery when I was 14 years old. And so that kind of derailed my dancing passion for a while because it was a year-long recovery process. And so during that time, I still needed that creative outlet. And that's honestly when I took my first official pottery class. And I really just fell in love with that, just the relationship between, me and the clay. I could make anything I wanted. It was so flexible. And it was just such a great experience. I just kept signing up for more and more classes. And eventually I did go to school for that. I got a degree in ceramics.
Awesome. So you didn't just stop with the degree. You've been on a whole journey here.
I
And
have.
so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, including the award-winning part. Uh, so let's go there. So I know you've had exhibitions and shows all over the place. And so where did all this award-winning artistry start?
It really started when I was graduating college. I love that kind of rigorous academic experience. And so I would just apply for things. And honestly, I wouldn't think too much about, like, well, what if I get it? What if I don't get it? I would just read the description, see if I got it, if I could, fulfill that obligation, whatever that might be, shipping my work or setting up an exhibition. And then I would just try. I would just apply for things. And of course, I got rejected all the time. I still get rejected. But those wins that I've gotten have led to some pretty amazing experiences.
Well, it's a lesson in that all by itself. Taking rejection in a whole different way, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so now you have turned this into a whole business, and not just that, you have multiple locations, which is amazing. So we know that didn't just happen overnight.
You're right.
It may look like that on the outside, but we know that's not what happened. So talk a little bit about that and how you kind of made that happen.
Of course. I'm from upstate South Carolina, and so that's kind of where my home base was. That's where my big kiln is, so to speak, and that's where I really started. And then during the pandemic, I wanted a more ceramic encouraging community, so to speak. And so that's what brought me to Asheville, North Carolina, where I live now. And so, based on the following that I already had in upstate South Carolina, I still have work in galleries and different shops around the upstate. And now that I'm in North Carolina, I've, hustled. I've reached out to other galleries in local towns around the area. And so I've been able to get my work there as well. And then it's amazing, opportunities just come even through social media. And so I'm actually in a gallery in Tennessee as well. So it's amazing how you never know what a great opportunity is going to be. And so I just try to keep, spreading out, keep eggs in multiple baskets, so to speak. So I have multiple different opportunities available.
One of the things that I really love talking to people about is the ability to pivot. And when I was just reading your story, I was like, she's like a master of this at this point, the master of the pivot. And so talk to me about that because of course, you had to pivot when you know, had to have the surgery and couldn't dance, but you also faced other pivots. One of them is when I was thinking about the timing of when you kind of started your business, it was like right before COVID. I was like, oh my gosh, right before COVID. And so I'm sure that was a pivot. Um,
Yes.
and even the moving. So could you just speak to that for a second and kind of how you maneuvered through that?
Of course. I love that master of the pivot. I've never thought about that. Yeah, basically, you're right. I was on this passion for dance, and then I really wasn't able to do that anymore. I had a year-long recovery process where I wasn't supposed to move my back because basically my back is fused completely straight with two titanium rods and 18 screws. And so it took a year for everything to kind of solidify, for the bone to really, you know, um, be firm enough for me to go about my normal life. So during that time, I needed something, and so that's really what drove me to ceramics. But it didn't. It felt like my world was crashing down. It didn't necessarily feel like a pivot. It felt like, a life raft or something. Like I just
Mhm.
have to find something to do. But now seeing what that experience has led me to and what God's been able to do in my life through that, it's amazing to see I've been able to have so many more opportunities with ceramics than I ever would have been able to with dance. And so I recognize that now, and I'm able to see my surgery not as a curse, like I saw it for the decade after I had it, but now I'm seeing it as the blessing that really transformed the rest of my life. And then you're right, I did start my business right when I graduated, which unfortunately was right before the pandemic. And so that was some pivoting as well. I was working for a ceramic supply store during the pandemic, trying to do my business. Of course, festivals weren't really happening at the time, and pottery sells really well at art shows and festivals. So that really was a challenge to figure out. It wasn't really an art buying market during the pandemic, right? When people get scared, they stop buying art. So trying to figure out, what can I do? Can I teach classes? How do we deal with masking or proximity? What does that look like? So I've done some online classes, like offering videos where I teach, and there's been different things. But honestly, during the pandemic, when I moved up here to Asheville, North Carolina, it was to pursue my craft under the guidance of a studio potter. So I was able to have that degree, but then also get that real world experience working for a potter, seeing how she runs her studio, seeing how she runs her website. How do you do online sales? What does that look like? And so that opened up a whole new world for me of wholesale that I had never really experienced before, but it's allowed me to be able to sell my pots around the country, honestly, and have that kind of consistent order coming through that I know every month someone's going to put in that repetitive order that I can ship out and have that steady income coming in that way.
Now, you actually just dropped a few nuggets there, like in that little piece of conversation. I like to call the nuggets out because sometimes people just drop them, nice and quiet. And I'm like, no, that was a nugget. So, first of all, you were talking about the fact that you actually consciously made that decision to come and study under someone that was more knowledgeable. And so I think at certain points, people really disregard the importance of a mentor. And so that was a really smart decision on your part to find a mentor in your field and actually study under them for a while. So that's amazing. And two, I was going to actually call out the fact that I think in looking through, it was either your website or something, but I was looking and I said, I saw a picture of you and you had your mask on and everything. You were somewhere, you had your mask on, you were still taking a picture with your pottery. But when I saw that, I was like, yeah, she was not letting this, pandemic stop her. She was still out there, doing what you had to do, which is amazing as well. So I applaud you for that because a lot of people, kind of didn't know when to go back out or stay in or stayed virtual and never, some people are still virtual and haven't fully gone back out there. So you really don't let anything stop you. So that's amazing. No, honestly, that was amazing. And so let's move into talking about actually your book then, because so you're powering through as a small business owner, making really smart decisions and growing your business. And now you decide you want to write this book. So first, I want to talk about what actually led you to do that.
Yeah, basically, it was kind of upon me graduating again. A lot of things were kind of culminating at that same time. And I was realizing that I was about to lose this ceramics community that I had had for 4 years. And it was a great community where we would bounce ideas off of each other. We had, of course, the professor was there to mentor us, and I was about to lose all of that. And so at that point, I am a Christian. And so I noticed all of the Bible verses that talked about pottery. And I just thought there's got to be some kind of devotion book where I could kind of get that sense of community reading about pottery in God's word. And there really wasn't a devotion book that I could find that really talked about that. So at that point, the Holy Spirit just kind of whispered that I could start working on it. And I had never written a book. I never really thought that that was something I was going to do. But I started writing things down and reading through the Bible. I had never read through it all the way through. So I started that in 2019, trying to figure out how many pottery Bible verses are there? And based on my ceramics background, what is the true symbolism? You know, we get the surface level symbolism, but knowing the techniques and the tricks to clay, what is that deeper symbolism that God's putting in this? And so I had a rough draft in 2019. I tried to get it published. Thankfully, it was rejected. One publisher basically told me I could pay a lot of money to self-publish, and I was fresh out of college, so I didn't have that kind of money. And thankfully, it was rejected because it was a really rough draft, and I just didn't have the experience at that time. And that's what I was praying about. You know, Lord, if this is really from you, what am I supposed to do with this? And so I just felt like he was telling me to wait and gain more experience. Honestly, I thought that meant decades down the line. I thought, you know, I'd be retired, old and gray, maybe had been a teacher for decades. Who knew? But no, it was just a couple of years later. And so in January of 2023, I had some spare time up in the cold mountains of North Carolina. And so I just rewrote that manuscript. And one publisher reached out, they picked it up. And so it was traditionally published. And as they say, the rest is history. It's just been an amazing experience.
That's really awesome. And, you know, when you're talking, you know, it sounded like, oh, things just really worked out well for her. But I'm sure it was not right.
Yeah. It's a lot of questioning, a lot of doubting, a lot of hustling. Yep.
And we actually all go through that. And so you were talking about, you know, your faith. And so throughout this, you know, whole thing and everything that you've gone through, I could really see where faith was playing a definite role in your life. And so can you talk about that and how faith played that role throughout all of these kind of things that you had to go through, these experiences that you had to go through, and kind of, you know, decisions you had to make?
Of course. Yeah. I honestly, I became a Christian when I was about 7 or 8 years old, but it was really my parents' faith at that point because they were the ones driving me to church or choir or whatever we were doing. And I didn't know I could say no, and I enjoyed it. So I went. But my faith really became my own when I was preparing to have this surgery. And honestly, I was praying for miraculous healing. I knew that the surgery was coming about a year in advance, and I was just praying that the Lord would heal me because there are those stories in the Bible, and I've even heard firsthand accounts today of people who are healed miraculously still. So I was praying for that, and obviously it didn't happen, and I didn't know why. And so for 10 years after my surgery, I was really just, going through the motions. I was remaining faithful in God. He was remaining faithful to me, but I didn't understand the purpose of my life. And so that was constantly my prayer. And I was just trying to figure out, Lord, why did you give me this experience? Why did I have this surgery? Why am I drawn to pottery? Why are you doing all of this? Why am I this way? And that went on for 10 years, me just not understanding what was going on, and honestly being a little bit bitter about it because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to have a purpose. I wanted to know what I was supposed to do and why I was here on this earth. And I felt like the Lord was silent. He wasn't telling me what that was. And so after those 10 years, kind of coming out of that and looking back on the 10 years of my life from that surgery, I was able to see that God was faithful through that whole time, that he protected me during the surgery. You know, I wasn't paralyzed. You're dealing with the spine and the spinal cord and all of that stuff. And so I wasn't paralyzed. And so that was a blessing. And he allowed the surgery to go well. That was another blessing. And he did give me a passion for pottery that I only discovered because of that surgery. And that's really what shaped the rest of my life. And then realizing that it's not just a love for pottery, but it is using my experiences and my knowledge to really unpack the Bible from a way that people might not have thought of before, as seeing God as an artist and as a creative God. That's not always talked about a lot. And talking about how our creativity comes from God and our artistic passions are God-given. So really unpacking that even deeper and seeing my purpose isn't just to make pots. It's honestly to glorify God through whatever I'm doing and to point back to him. And since my passion is pottery, I'm able to speak into that. And so it's been amazing to see just relying on him, especially moving to North Carolina. I moved here not really knowing anyone. I had met the potter I was going to work for. I had met her twice before I moved up here, and she was the only one I knew. And I'd only known her for, a couple of minutes, just meeting her twice. So I was moving up here completely alone. I didn't know the safe parts of town. I didn't know what grocery store to shop at. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know a church group. I didn't have family in the area. And so it really felt like it was just me and God against the world. And that's really what strengthened my faith, just being completely alone. And because of that, I was able to, kind of break out of my shell, build community, try different churches until I found one I liked, and all of this good stuff that the Lord's given me. And it's amazing to see how he's remained faithful because he's remained faithful regardless of what I do. But I've just constantly asked him for guidance. And so he's honored that by giving me guidance and giving me purpose and allowing me to serve in my church, whether that's with the youth or serving through my book or other means. But it's beautiful. It's been an amazing story to just see how good he's been in my life.
Well, thank you. That was amazing because you know what, and very honest. I want to say that. So thank you for being very transparent with that because this faith walk is a journey, and we're always growing. So we're still growing, in our faith and growing in God, and so I think we always will be. I don't think it ever stops. And so we have to we have to be open to, whatever he's trying to build and grow in us. And, but also we have to be open to what's happening so that we can accept the things that are happening, but also see it from, through his eyes or how he wants us to see it. Because everything, like you said, even the things that you thought, were bad or were happening to you were actually really for your good, which he tells us anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to believe it in the moment.
No, I know. It can be difficult. Yes, it can be difficult. So thank you for that. And you are in youth ministry, and you had said that briefly as well. But can you just speak to that? Like, what is it particularly about youth ministry that calls you? I mean, other than you being young, but what is it that calls you to youth ministry?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think I'd end up here. And for a while, I didn't serve in the church because I'm an introvert and I didn't think there was a place for me unless I was, on stage singing in the choir or a door greeter. And neither of those appealed to me because I'm an introvert. But my church offered a class on spiritual gifts. And so I took that class trying to figure out where I could serve because I was praying, Lord, if I'm going to serve, then I want to feel needed. I want to be useful. And I don't want to feel like my time is wasted, basically. And so I took that class and I learned what my spiritual gifts were. My top spiritual gift is knowledge, which I guess I should have seen that coming, but I didn't. So I was like, how do I use knowledge in the church? And I talked to a mentor in the church and she recommended working with the youth. And so I'm with the 7th grade girls, and it's really amazing to just encourage them and to see them asking questions and knowing God deeper. And, they're really coming out of that children's ministry still. So they're really starting to understand this deeper meaning of their faith, and just being there for them. It's really amazing to just be able to do that. And then also the youth program, the lead youth pastor has allowed art to really become prevalent in this group, which has just been such a blessing to kind of come full circle. I actually have been able to offer ceramics classes to the youth students, specifically with a wheel. And so I've been able to demonstrate and to guide them on the pottery wheel. And they're basically the same age that I was when I discovered my passion for ceramics. So it's truly just an amazing God story, just a blessing to be able to come full circle in that way and just give back to the church.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Full circle experience.
Yeah.
I love hearing those when you come like right back around and you can see the blessing of God in the whole thing. That's amazing. That's great. So you're doing a lot. So
I stay busy. Yep.
so how do you balance all of that? And I don't know what else you have going on, because we've just talked about a few things, but how do you balance all of that and really still, give your all to ministry, your work, of course, and whatever else you are involved in?
Yeah, I love that question because I can be honest with you and say I don't balance it all equally every day. And I think that's so important to realize that, it's all about priorities. And my top priority should be honoring God in whatever I'm doing. And sometimes I remember that more than others. But basically, that is our ultimate goal here on earth. But depending on the day, sometimes I'm able to be in my studio longer than others. Some days I'm serving with the youth longer than others. And so it is really taking it day by day, and staying so busy kind of forces me into the present. I am such a planner. And the pandemic really showed me that I can't plan. God's the only one who knows the future. So I've really got to remain in the present. And that's hard for me. But staying so busy means that it's really sometimes a moment by moment perspective, because I've got so much going on. I've got to figure out what I need to do right now, what takes priority in the moment, and then going from there.
I love what you said about just keeping God first, and if he's the priority, honestly, everything else is going to fall in line, right?
Yeah.
It's going to all the other priorities will fall where they're supposed to if we're keeping God first. So that's a great point. Great point. Forget the balance. I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever said that on this show. Forget the balance. I'm like, how can we balance things? I think that's even in my intro. I might have to change my intro. I like that. Okay. So I like that. Definitely agree with that. So what's next for you?
Ooh, I've got a lot of good things coming up. I do a residency in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. It's about 2 hours away from me. And so I've been invited back for the third year in a row. So I'll be doing that coming up. I've got a couple solo exhibitions, one going right now, one coming up next year. Still promoting the book, of course, still speaking in different events. And I've actually got an event coming up. I believe it's in July, a virtual speaking event. So I'll be doing that. But just seeing where the Lord takes me, honestly. And that's the fun part. And of course, the scary part, to just completely surrender and be like, whatever you want to use my life for, let's do it. And it's been an amazing experience. I've been able to do amazing things. But also there's a lot of things, whether it's working my small business or doing the youth, serving at the church in whatever way I can. Yeah, I stay pretty busy. So you never know what's coming.
Well, that's definitely true. And for those of you who want Morgan's book, they can just go to your website, right?
They can, yeah. It's traditionally published, so I have all those links to whether that's Barnes & Noble, Target, wherever you want to buy online, you can do it that way. And then also on my website, you can shop my pottery as well.
Now, you said that, and I didn't say too much about that, but that's actually a topic that people love talking about for whatever reason, because, not a lot of people get traditionally published. It's not like people want to, but, it doesn't happen for a lot of people. And so that was a blessing as well.
It
I guess
was.
just be in line with the Lord and you'll get your, no, let me stop.
Yeah,
But
honestly, I was just praying, Lord, if you're going to do this, then you're going to have to do it because I don't know what I'm doing. And so I reached out to multiple publishers and only one reached back out to me. And so that was completely all God taking care of that. And they've been great to work with. And it's been truly an honor to have them kind of back me and my book and all of this.
so that's amazing and such a blessing too. Well, congratulations on all of your success, Morgan. And you guys can check out her beautiful artwork. As she says, she can, sell her artwork all over. So you can
Yeah.
go there and check it out and pick up some beautiful pieces. And your artwork is truly beautiful. I got a chance to peruse through it as well.
Thank you.
So yes, yes. So thank you so much, Morgan. It's been great having you on. And thank you for the amazing quiet nuggets that you dropped on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a great show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, you guys, it's been another one, but we want to, a great show, another great show, but we want to thank our amazing guest, Morgan McCarver. Thank you, Morgan.
Thanks.
So, you guys, another one down for the books. And if you guys, again, if you want to check out Morgan's artwork and get her book, you can definitely check that out. And I'm going to throw that link up here one more time, just so you can snatch that up. And I'm also going to put that in the chat so that you can grab it as well. Go there and check that out. So until next time, guys, it's been really, really great. We do this every second and fourth Friday. So be sure to come back then and check us out. We'll be right here. It's been great. Until next time, you guys, stay boss.